Good evening, my name's Rob Pollard. This is a preview video on, I guess, another milestone for Ancient Armies. The system now supports the modelling of unit cohesion, and it also understands the concept of irregular units. And I'll show you how it all works if we run it up. Pick our snare movement demo. Once again, for purposes of this demo, turn off line of sight so we see everything. Right, I'm playing as blue, but I think we got control both sides for this particular one. So this is our scenario. The first thing you'll notice that's a little bit different is we've got this rather odd unit here. Now, this is a skirmisher unit. It's an early rendition of how I propose to display these. My biggest issue with this display technique is the text. It's hard to read, but I think I have a solution to make the text a lot more readable. But from here on in, there are two general types of units. There are those that fight in a solid formation, and they appear solid. And there are those where they don't really have a formation, they just kind of hang around an area and skirmish. Now when the system produces the graphic for a skirmisher, it's the actual outside dimensions are precise, but the blues and whites aren't necessarily exactly where the people are. It's just a way for the viewer to say, yes, that's an irregular unit. It does try to maintain a good ratio between the units and spaces. That gives you an idea of how much gaps, or how much gap there is between the various people in that formation. So in this case, it's a bunch of javelin armed skirmishers, and like I said, they're not fighting in any formation at all. And that's brand new for Ancient Armies. Right, what we've got here, we've got a whole bunch of units that they're all pretty much identical except for their training. Now, we have a well-trained unit, averagely trained unit, and a conscript unit. On the right, the purple one, they're allies. So basically, these allies have lent this army some troops to bolster up the line. Unfortunately, these particular allies aren't that good, not even in terms of conscripts. The reason I put that in there is in Ancient Armies, not only does it differentiate between all the various bits and bobs regarding discipline and training, but you can also customize the maneuvers for the units. So for instance, if I right click on this conscript here, he's got all these maneuvers to pick from. If I right click on this one here, he has far fewer. And more to the point, the actual maneuvers themselves are editable within the army editor. So I've set this unit up here so that whenever he attempts any of these maneuvers, he'll actually break formation very quickly. Now, before I move anything, I like to explain what I mean by cohesion. In Ancient Armies, unlike other games, cohesion refers to how well, I guess, how well the men are lined up in their formation, and how that they're sticking to their formation. Now, in other games that you see, I'm thinking of board games here, that they have cohesion as well. But with those games, as soon as you reach zero cohesion, or in that case high cohesion, the unit effectively breaks. That's not the case in Ancient Armies. In Ancient Armies, you can actually have a unit that has incredibly poor cohesion. It'll carry on fighting. Because Ancient Armies models cohesion separately from morale. The two are completely different. It's the morale of a unit which will cause it to break, not its cohesion level. Now that said, cohesion does affect shock combat. It has a lot of effects on shock combat. In fact, I don't want to go into how it affects it, simply because, well, the combat system's proprietary and I don't really want to give away how that's modelled. But all I can say right now is having poor cohesion will affect certain units more than others, dependent on the kind of weaponry they're carrying and so forth. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get these 4 units here to move forward, standard move, and we'll see how they get on. So there we go. In fact, let's send the skirmishers out as well, and we'll even send this cavalry unit here out. Right, so let's see how they all do when I hit play. Now note this unit here has immediately started to break up in terms of cohesion, and that's because I've set that unit there up so that the units, the med units are so poorly trained that the minute they try to get the formation moving, they all fall into disarray. So for this particular unit here, if you owned a bunch of these in your army, you would have to take that into account, so you'd effectively have to move them early and then give them time when they're stationary to recover their cohesion, basically. So they are really poor conscripts indeed. Now our other conscripts, standard conscripts, they're starting to get a little bit of cohesion damage from movement. The well-traded average units look like they're fine so far. Now, there's a whole bunch of things that affects cohesion. There's terrain clutter, elevation, how your men are packed into the formation. There are literally 1,000,001 things that go into cohesion modelling, so it's not immediately obvious at times what or how the units are going to react to your orders. And it's great because I've had a few occasions where I've looked at it, I thought that looks a bit weird, and then when I looked through the debug output, I thought, wow, that's really good emergent behaviour. You actually see the units doing the kind of things that they would in real life, and I'll show you one of those later on. So show you the final part. So these guys here, looks like they've walked about 100 meters. Now you need to realise that when you're walking on a battlefield, this isn't a parade ground. This is actual countryside. The countryside's never completely flat, hence why you always take a bit of cohesion damage. Now the average guys took a very small amount of cohesion damage. Well trained didn't at all. The conscripts took a little bit there. In fact, the average have now recovered themselves, and these guys will start recovering as well. Recovery rates for cohesion is based on trading and also unit size. Basically speaking, the better your trading, the faster the units will be able to reform again properly. The poorer the trading, the more faffing around that happens as people move around in a formation trying to work out where they need to go. So when I execute for the next 30 seconds, you should see this conscript here. He should reform back to normal, hopefully, within the 30 seconds. Let's see how they get on. This one here will take a lot longer. So here we go. Of course, the larger the formation, the longer it takes to generally reform as well. So there you go. This conscript's now ready to go again. This guy here, they're still working on it, but he got so badly damaged by moving that it's taken them a while to sort out where they need to go. And it's this kind of modelling that will have a big effect on how you move your units. For example, if the terrain you're travelling over is relatively rough, and you're in charge of a Macedonian phalanx, you might want to effectively go double depth. So a lot of phalanxes are trained that when they go double depth, they effectively increase the spacing between the men, and it's those gaps between the men that will enable the units to travel across the ground whilst taking a small amount of cohesion damage. So generally speaking, the tighter a unit is packed, the more cohesion damage it will take. With completely open order troops like these guys here actually taking none at all. But then again, their cohesion level is always 0, so it doesn't affect them in terms of missile fire, but it might affect them if they were to go into shock combat. So that's a standard set of moves. Now, obviously, some moves cause more damage than others. A classic one being the wheel maneuver. Wheeling is one that requires a lot of training, so if we get this conscript unit to wheel around, what you'll find is he'll take a lot more damage going around than he would have done if he'd gone in a straight line. So let's have a look. So far they're hanging together. So they're not doing too bad a job so far. Now the system's designed so that the faster maneuvers, the charges and so forth, they're the ones that really damage cohesion. But there you go, this conscript unit's already taken a fair bit, and that's just by turning. And what you'll find is, in fact, let's get rid of that order. What you'll find is once he's stopped, it should be quite simple for him to reform. So let's see if he reforms now. Troops are still working out where they need to go. These allied conscripts are getting there, but it's taken them a long time. There we go. So they've already reformed. However, that was a standard wheel maneuver. Now, what happens if we go for a fast wheel? The fast wheel is effectively a wheel at a run. How is that going to affect our trading for our poor conscript units? Let's see what happens. Look at that straight away. Lots of cohesion damage, and that's because their trade is exceedingly poor and they can't really deal with that. So it's going to take them a little bit longer to recover their cohesion. And these guys here are kind of getting there eventually. And it's the same with charges. If you charge a unit, you'll create more cohesion damage than if you don't. So if we charge these two, the average and the well trade, send them off on their way. See, the average guy's already taking some damage. The well trained are kind of hanging in there. They got some damage now, but not as much. And what you'll find is the well trained guys will recover faster because they're just better trained. So they've got to where they need to go, and you should see him recover a lot more quickly than the average. And he has less cohesion to get rid of as well. There you go. He's already recovered. These guys still recovering, and even our poor conscripts in the first move are still recovering. So the kind of maneuvers that you do also impact how much cohesion you take, as does your unit type. In Ancient Armies, for instance, cavalry tend to lose cohesion a lot faster than infantry, because that's the nature of horses when they're charging around. But their weapon systems in shot combat aren't affected quite as badly by having a low cohesion. Like I said, there's still a bit of work to do on this. This is a very early preview. There's obviously some graphical bits and bobs I'll probably be looking at. So I can see, even for that relatively short charge, that cavalry unit there has taken a little bit of cohesion damage, which he should recover relatively soon. So that's shows you the effects of cohesion when they're on open ground. What about if we're going to run into some terrain, like a forest, for instance? Now, in Ancient Armies, forests have different densities. This is a standard density one. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to run these formations into the forest, and we'll see what happens to them. We're not going to get them to charge, so I'll just do a normal move forward. We'll see what the effects are. We even send the cavalry into the forest as well, which is a thing you wouldn't really want to do in real life. Right, so what we got from left to right, at the top here we got a well-trained unit, then we've got an average unit, a conscript. They've got their own allies helping them out, and they're like the other ones. They're really, really poor, so you should see them break almost straight away. And then they got some skirmishers and some cavalry. So let's hit play and see how this goes. See, those guys there, they pretty much lost their cohesion straight away, so really badly trained. And that's kind of similar to, I guess, some of the old units in the Egyptian times. They were really badly trained, and they're effectively static units. You could move them, but you had to give them time to reform when they got to the other end. That's why chariots in their day were so powerful, because the infantry were so static. I see here the cavalry's taken massive amount of hits, cohesion damage from going through the forest. That's because cavalry aren't really well suited to moving through forests with all the low hanging branches and so forth. Now as these guys here enter, we'll see what happens to them. This conscript's starting to take cohesion damage anyway, and that's even before they've entered the forest. The well-trained obviously just started to get into the forest. He's taking some damage, and he's slowed down as well because the woods are slowing him down. Conscript's starting to... He isn't quite in there. Yes, he's coming into the forest now. You can tell by the speed at which he's picking up cohesion damage. And it's just the average unit will be picking up lots of cohesion damage as they go through the forest as well. The bottom line with forests is that unless you're an open unit like one of these, you're going to be taking quite a lot of cohesion damage. And if you can imagine, say, a phalanx through your life, imagine what would happen to that formation if they even tried to go near a forest. This is what this represents. Now, what you will notice is that the well-trained units are slower than the average, and the average is slower than the conscripts. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, that's got to be a bug, surely. But it turns out it isn't. What it is as the cohesion of your unit drops, because you have more spacings between your men, you can actually move through the forest a little bit faster. Whereas these well-trained guys, because they're so well-trained, their formation hasn't taken as much cohesion damage as the other two, so they have more cohesion in their formation. And that additional cohesion is actually slowing them down. It's making it harder for them to move through the forest. It's almost like they're having to slow down in order to try and retain their cohesion. Whereas these other guys here, because their cohesion levels are a lot lower, they have more gaps in their formation, and because of that, they're able to move through the forest a little bit faster. Like I said, the first time I saw that, I thought that's a bit counterintuitive, but when I looked at the debug code, it was perfect. And that's a form of, I guess, emergent behaviour that came in as a result of all the fatigue system and the cohesion system working in tandem. So see here, moving line units through a forest on the whole isn't a good idea. You want skirmishers for a forest, generally speaking. Now, as I mentioned before, having low cohesion isn't necessarily a bad thing, and if you've got the correct weaponry, it might not hurt you too badly in shock, although it will hurt you in other ways with shock, but like I said, I don't really want to go too much into detail. I've cancelled their movement orders. Let's see how quickly they all recover. You should see the well-trained guys recovering a lot earlier than the others. So superior trading's getting them in line. Looks like a little bug there, which I'll need to address at some point. It shouldn't be there. Let's give it another 30 seconds. Let's see how they're doing. So the well-trained guys are nearly there in terms of their cohesion. There we go. They're fully formed The average guys are still working on it, as are the conscripts, and the poor conscripts are still working on it as well. And of course, had I charged these units through the forest as opposed to just move them like I did there, they take even more damage even quicker. So yeah, on the whole, moving standard units through a forest isn't a good idea. On the whole, looks like this cavalry unit here is starting to recover as well, slowly but surely. So there's still more work to do. Although the actual basic bones of the system's there and all the modelling is in there, I want to look at the graphical representation, see if I can improve that a little bit. I certainly want to make the wording a lot more legible than it currently is. That's something that will happen at some point. Also want to look at making the menus so that they're automatically sorted, because if I go to that guy there, you can see his move forward commands at the top, but if I go to this other conscript, his move forward's at the bottom, and I'd rather they're all in alphabetical order, so that's something else I'll probably work on. And a few other graphical refinements, so that's pretty much done. Once I'm happy with the cohesion side, the next thing I'll be working on is a march formation, getting these units to march both on roads and off roads. And we'll see the pros and cons of marching. So that's it for this quick video demonstration. If you have any questions, just email me on the blog. Thank you for watching. Bye.